Welcome to this Plinky Quickie where we're going to talk all about stereo width. Now, when I first started doing Eurorack, I was hard panning everything. All of my voices were either dead center, left, or right, and it wasn't until a little bit later that I realized that the stereo field is a spectrum, not just left, right, and center. Now, just as you might place your voices in your mix at different places in the frequency spectrum to achieve clarity and balance, you can also place them in different places in the stereo field to get clarity and balance. So with that concept in mind, let's talk about stereo width on the Plinky. As usual, these tips will work both for the Plinky Plus and for the original smaller Plinky. I'm using the current beta firmware LPE 0.3.0, but these tips will also work on the current stable firmware 0.b3. So let's get started. You'll find the stereo width parameter here on the bottom side of this headphone symbol. Now, if you're using an older version of the original Plinky, you might not see stereo printed here, but as long as you're up to date on the firmware, you will be able to adjust the stereo width with this pad. So I'm going to press Shift down and this stereo width, you can see I'm actually already there. Now, by default, the Plinky is already placing the oscillators a little bit wide in the stereo field. This standard quad sawtooth sound, which is so characteristic for the Plinky, is actually made up of 4 different saw waves, and adjusting this stereo width will move them around in the stereo field. I think you should be able to hear that. In fact, I'm going to set the oscillator interval here to octaves so that you hear that even more clearly. We're going to go back to the stereo width. So if I put this all the way to 100, all 4 oscillators are dead center. And as I move, you should hear those oscillators moving across the stereo field. Now at 75, I am dead left and right with the 2 pairs of oscillators. I think you should be able to hear that. And coming back to 50, we're dead center again. Going below 50, we'll move those oscillators in the stereo field again, but in the opposite direction. 25, you should be able to hear that the higher octave is on the left now before it was on the right. And going back down to 0, we are dead center again. I'm going to go up here where we were before to about 90. So things are placed a little bit in the stereo field, but not completely left and right. Now, like just about every other parameter on the Plinky, this can be modulated. So let's modulate that with a random slow LFO. You know, I like to do that if you've watched my channel. So we're going to patch the stereo width to modulator X, and I'm just going to go +10 here with the modulator level, and we're going to set the shape of LFO X to smooth random, and we're going to the rate be something a little bit slower here. How about just a couple of seconds? And we're going to give that all the depth it's got. So now they're at center. Now you can hear this drone. Let's add an octave just for fun. You can hear what was an otherwise boring drone is now a little bit more interesting because it's moving around the stereo field. And that's how you change the stereo width. Now, the stereo width isn't the only parameter on the Plinky that plays with the stereo field. If you add in some delay, you can also get a stereo delay. So let's add some delay in now. We're going to put this up to 50 so you can really hear it. Now, the normal delay won't mess with the stereo field at all. You should hear that that delayed sound is coming dead center. But if you go over here to the ping pong parameter, you can get delay that moves around the stereo field. So at 0, we're dead center, and as you move away from 0, you should hear this left-right stereo coming in that's really panned hard left and right. And the different parameter values used here are going to change the rhythm of those delayed sounds. So I'm going to go all the way to 50 so we get a regular rhythm. And there you go. That was your Plinky Quickie on stereo width. I hope it was good for you too.